Yeah, my team is cooked between buys, injuries, the whole 9 yards. It is a tough spot to be in for your boy, but let's go ahead. Let's look at all the last minute injury news that we have currently. I think we have answers to the majority of our injury questions. So Rashod Bateman not listed on the injury report for Monday. Obviously, this is going to be the big game that we want to watch this week. Should be the highest scoring game of the week, according to sportsbooks. And two, with Bateman playing, nothing really changes. It has no impact on, say, Flowers. For me personally, if I decided to start or bench him, no real impact on Andrews if I was going to decide to start or bench him. Obviously, Lamar, Henry. Really, the only thing is maybe if Bateman would have missed, Deontay Johnson could have been the largest desperation play of all mankind. But now with Bateman playing, it looks like you don't even have the desperation play of Deontay. Hayden Hurst listed out for Monday. So honestly, what we need to do is we need to just go through and give a considerable amount of respect to Mr. Will Dissly, who has been straight up crushing. Not only has been crushing, but this should be an offense, if you look at the schedule going into the future, that actually sees considerably more dropbacks than they had previously. So I think we put Dissly tied in 17 in the rest of season ranks. And then also I think we need to move him up in the weekly rankings as well. Again, should be a very high scoring game environment. Not only will it be a high scoring game environment, but at the same time, you're in a spot in which he's been running a ton of routes, seeing a ton of snaps. If you have no Hayden Hurst, I think you can comfortably put him in where I would play Will Dissly over like Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. I think you could really strongly consider him over Mark Andrews. I know I looked at this earlier, but if you go over and look at the underdog projections right now, you actually can see that they have Will Dissly currently sitting at higher, lower 41.5 receiving yards, which is really high considering tight end projections in general. Whereas you're looking at Mark Andrews like higher, lower 32.5 receiving yards. So honestly, we probably need to go through and maybe even give Dissly a little more credit than this and go ahead, put him there at tight end 10. Now, our next update that we are going to have is going to be with Alexander Madison, Zamir White, both looking doubtful. The Raiders go through and they elevate another running back. I can see that we have somebody in the Flock League, Thomas, going through and throwing Amir Abdullah on the trade block as if anybody would be interested. But I guess we have to consider Amir Abdullah as a viable starter for this week, right? Because if you are looking at Amir Abdullah, he's going to have the volume. And this is a week where pretty much you're looking at garbage across the board. Like for me at this point, I think I'd probably rather play Amir Abdullah over, I don't know, maybe like Austin Eckler. I think I'd put him here at RB28. My thing with like Amir Abdullah versus Rico Dowdle is I know people are going to say like, oh my gosh, okay, are we going to go through and are we going to play Abdullah over Dowdle because Abdullah is going to have such a large workload with all the running backs out in Las Vegas? I'd say, well, you know what? Dowdle's probably going to have a similar workload. The difference between the two of them is going to be that, I don't know, I don't know what the difference would be. They're in garbage offenses, both of them. You can't say, oh my gosh, the Cowboys are 10.5-point dogs. They're going to get crushed against Washington. They project to be one of the worst offenses in the league. Amir Abdullah has a tough matchup going up against Denver. And he's also in a garbage offense. Now, going over to what we have with Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders placed on the IR, will miss at least 4 weeks. So I am interested to see Jonathan Brooks, of course. I'll say if Brooks is on the waiver wire in your league, you definitely need to pick him up because at the very minimum, Jonathan Brooks is a premium handcuff running back. You view him in the same light that you would Tyler Algier to Chuba Hubbard's Bijan Robinson. Now, I will be on record. I think Chuba's much less than Bijan. And I think Brooks is much more than Tyler Algier, but I want to give credit to Chuba Hubbard, who's absolutely crushed so far this season. He is very much the clear starter here. But obviously, it's not like you can do anything other than just start Chuba and bench. Ooh, wrong Panthers here. My apologies. But it's not like you can do anything but bench Brooks, start Chuba this week. I'm hoping that they have underdog projections. Okay, they have, interesting. This is even lower than I was expecting. They have Jonathan Brooks higher, lower, 15.5 rushing yards going up against KC. They have Chuba Hubbard, higher lower 73.5 total yards going up against the Chiefs. Obviously a very tough matchup regardless. Again, I don't view Hubbard as a must-start running back this week because how tough the matchup is and because Brooks should have a role here. Now, Brandon Cooks not activated off the IR for week 12. Doesn't matter. You're not excited about Brooks anyway. And this is what's interesting here. Aaron Rodgers wants to still play in 2025, but not for the Jets. So, let's go over and actually, I'll update the rest of season rankings in the live stream tonight. Let's make sure that we stay on topic here. Let's make sure we're looking at starting lineups. But in the live stream tonight, we'll update the rest of season ranks because I do think you have to be concerned about Rodgers maybe not coming back after the bye week and what that would mean for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. But anyway, here, Ladd McConkey gets in the limited practice on Friday. The issue with Ladd is he's still questionable going into the Monday game. For me, I still think you have to plan on playing Ladd McConkey. Obviously, if you wanted to pick up somebody like Joshua Palmer, just in case Ladd wouldn't be good to go on Monday because it is a little frustrating that it's a game later on. I am expecting that Ladd should be good. If you go through and look at my rankings for Ladd McConkey this week, I honestly would probably put Ladd ahead of JSN. If you knew, I'd put him ahead of Harrison. I'd probably put Ladd up here at about wide receiver 13 if you knew that he was 100% good to go. I mean, you can even go and look at the projections that you have on Underdog this week with Ladd. He's currently higher lower 65.5 receiving yards. It's a phenomenal matchup. It's an offense that probably has to throw the ball a little bit more than they would in a regular week. You go through and look at Mike Evans in comparison. Mike Evans is higher lower 55.5 receiving yards in comparison to Ladd McConkey at 65.5. So definitely a very unique spot where Ladd, I want to say, is a must-start wide receiver if he does play, but the issue is not 100% guaranteed just good to go at this point. And I will say also, quick side note, Mike Evans to go higher than 55.5 receiving yards is one of my favorite underdog picks for this week. Obviously, the issue would be you're going up against the Giants and maybe don't have a lot of passing volume. But with no Godwin in this offense and Evans getting cleared early in the week, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be at 100%. But I also want to warn you, I'm 0 for 1,000 on all our underdog recommendations so far this season. But if you wanted to check out the Mike Evans higher than 55.5 receiving yards, or if you wanted to go through and check out any of these picks for Sunday, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the description, in the comment section, in the live chat. If you use promo code FLOCK, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you will get a free Matthew Stafford pick, more than less than half a total yard for the game tomorrow night, which I really need a big Stafford day because I'm playing him with no Brock Purdy in the Flock League. But you can find that link, again, down in the description. And if you use code FLOCK, not only are you going to get that free pick, the 50% deposit bonus, but you are also going to be getting a free team review in the live stream that we are doing every single night. Just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to go ahead and credit you with that free team review voucher. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our other news. Brock Purdy officially listed out for Week 12. Just in case you didn't see it last night, we had already kind of played around with the updated Week 12 rankings where we had dropped Deebo Samuel as well as Juwan Jennings, the guys that aren't super appealing. For me, I have Brock Purdy as my starting quarterback here. I had Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins. Obviously, the issue is freaking Cousins is on bye. So in my league, just in case you're in a similar spot, I was forced to go through and pick up another quarterback. The guy that I went with, God, it's just so freaking sucky to look at. Honestly, I'm sorry. We're going to look at this on the website. I can't look at it on Sleeper. Let me select by my rankings. But yeah, so obviously, if you have not linked your team with flockfantasy.com, do it. I would highly recommend doing so if you're trying to make waiver wire moves. It's a lot easier. So I ended up having to drop Kirk Cousins. Again, on bye this week, I had to pick up another quarterback with no Brock Purdy. My options were Drake Mays, Sam Darnold, Caleb Williams. And I decided out of these players to go with Matthew Stafford. My hesitation is with Stafford, of course. It's a really tough matchup going up against the Eagles, but he has absolutely crushed whenever you have whenever you've had Kupp and Puka both good to go in this offense. But freaking Devonta Smith is making me start Jalen Waddle this week as well. It's an Ugly, ugly spot. But yeah, I moved Deebo Samuel and Jawan Jennings down to guys that I really don't want to consider playing. Obviously, you play CMC and Kittle regardless. But I mean, we looked at this last night. I'll pull it up again for y'all today. If you were looking at updated implied team totals here, so these are sportsbook projections of what we should expect with these offenses. And this is what I would highly recommend to look at. If you're trying to figure out what offenses should be great this week, right now sportsbooks have the Lions, the Commanders, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Eagles as the highest scoring offenses in the league. And then the lowest scoring offenses in the league this week, they have the Panthers, then the Browns, then the Titans, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Raiders, the Bears, and then the Niners. The Niners are only supposed to be better and score more points this week offensively than Chicago, the Raiders, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns, and the Panthers. And yes, you can look at some of the wide receivers in these offenses, like the Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb, and say, oh, okay, yeah, that player is still a must-start option that we can be excited about just because you're going to get a ton of guaranteed target volume. The issue is if you're looking at like the Niners receivers, that's not inherently the case where they have to compete with each other. You have to compete with Kittle. You have to compete with Deebo. You have to compete with Jennings. The Pearsall maybe gets a little something. Obviously, there's no way in hell you can start Pearsall. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jennings pops off. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Deebo pops off. But I think they have very low floors. It's a similar situation to like Jameson Williams, who's in the same range. Would I be super surprised if Jameson has a big day? No. Would I be surprised if Jameson gives you a total of 29 yards? No. So I think you just have to look at them as players with wide ranges of outcomes that you maybe should be a little bit hesitant with. And I think we lost it. Okay, here we are. Bam. Now our next thing to look at here will be Ferguson officially listed out. I mean, obviously, if you had no Ferguson and you had no Brandon Cooks, you could maybe say, oh, Jalen Tolbert's super interesting. But the issue is the offense projects to be a bottom 5 offense in the league. The only guy that's startable is CeeDee Lamb. Devonta Smith listed as out. So what we ended up doing with the weekly rankings is obviously move Smith to the bottom. A.J. Brown's wide receiver 2 for us this week. And then we have Dallas Goedert flying up these ranks as tight end 5. And then going over to quarterback, we currently have Jalen Hurts as QB3. Now moving this over, we already talked about Ladd. Laporta, 100% good to go. Not super excited about Laporta like we just saw his projected underdog pick. It's very low. Sadly, your boy has to start Laporta this week in the Flock League. Sadly, I drafted this dude every chance I had in round 4 of underdog drafts this year, thinking I was on to something, which I was on something. I definitely wasn't on to something. But yeah, he's higher, lower, 35 and out receiving yards. Not much better than just a streaming tight end. Like I went through and I actually put in a decent little bid for Dalton Kincaid to potentially be my tight end over Laporta after week 12. And then we already updated Abdullah with the rankings at the beginning of this. You can rewind if need be. And Malik Neighbors intends on playing week 12. So obviously Malik Neighbors does re-aggravate the groin injury. He's still listed as questionable. I would maybe lower expectations a bit with Malik Neighbors with the groin. We have him wide receiver 9. The thing is, it's a beautiful matchup going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, yes, DeVito is under center. It's not like this offense projects to be much worse than what they've been all season. The offensive projections here have stayed the same. And if y'all remember, a big reason why I didn't draft Malik Neighbors in round 2 of underdog drafts this year was I was looking at him saying, okay, well, the Giants project to be a bottom 5 offense in the NFL in points scored this season, according to sportsbooks. And that's why I was spooked, just because the offense was supposed to be so bad. And this week, with a bunch of teams on bye, the Giants project to be 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th lowest scoring offense in the league. So really nothing has changed from where they were at the beginning of the season with the projections. Like we knew it was going to be a bad offense. It's a bad offense with Daniel Jones. It's a bad offense with Tommy DeVito. Doesn't really matter. Malik Neighbors going to dominate target volume. I think maybe you'll look at him a little bit more risky because the groin, it will be something to continue to monitor, but you still probably start the dude regardless. See if there's anything else that we have not talked about that maybe we need to. I think this should be it. Obviously, we already updated everything with Pacheco and blah, blah, blah. And we'll be obviously answering questions as well on the live stream later tonight. I'll probably fire up the stream again in about 3-4 hours definitely want to go grab some dinner first. But of course, y'all can check out all the updated ranks on the site. And if y'all wanted to get a free team review, or if you wanted to go and check out any of these picks that we showed during this live stream, you can find that over there on Underdog Fantasy. I'll leave the link in the description, comment section, live chat. If you use promo code FLOCK, you'll get that free Jalen Hurts pick. You'll get that free Matthew Stafford pick, more than less than half a total yard for the game tomorrow night. Plus, you're going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 and a free team review in the live stream that we're doing every single night. Just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way I'm able to credit you with that free team review voucher. But thank you again. I really do appreciate y'all, and really hope we get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.